Type 7 connecting content questions. Okay, so this type of question, we just saw one of these type of questions on the community dynamics questions a few minutes ago, the one where we had to fill in the table about secondary or primary or secondary succession. And that would be an example of a connecting content question. It's somewhat similar to the fill in the table question in the reading section. Okay, connecting content questions. These measure your understanding of the relationships among ideas and information in the lecture. And again, like many things in this test, the relationships might be stated directly or explicitly, or you might have to make an inference about them. Okay, and again, the questions, this type of question might ask you to organize information in a way that's different from the way it was organized in the reading. We might be asked to identify comparisons, cause and effect, or contradiction and agreement. You could also be asked to classify items in categories, identify a sequence of events. In other words, generally that would be sequence events in chronological order, or you might be asked to do steps in a process. And you do this first, then second, third. And finally, you might have to specify relationships among objects along some dimension. Okay, and here's an example. They're asking, obviously you've done a listing where they're talking about symmetry. And then they obviously talked about, somewhere in there, they talked about earthworms, humans, sponges, and sea anemones. The choices are asymmetry, radial symmetry, or bilateral symmetry. All of us are bilaterally symmetric. In other words, our left side is a mirror image of our right side. Something for radial symmetry would be something like maybe a jellyfish or a starfish or a sea cucumber. And asymmetry, the two sides are different. They don't reflect each other. So here the answers are, earthworms and humans are bilaterally symmetric. Sponges are always asymmetric, and sea anemones can be either asymmetric or radially symmetric. So here's how you might recognize these type of questions. What is the likely outcome of doing procedure X before procedure Y? What can be inferred about X? What does the professor imply about X? And again, not all these questions require you to fill in a chart or table, but many of them do. Questions that require you to fill in a table or chart or put events in order fall into this category. So as you listen to lectures accompanying this study guide, or during the test, or any of the other practice that we do, pay attention to the way you format your notes. Clearly identify terms and their definitions, as well as steps in a process. And this will help you answer questions of this type. So think about how they're organizing the information as you listen. So I will read you this one, and then you will have to answer the question. Okay, Neptune and its moons. See it. Okay, Neptune and its moons. Neptune has several moons, but we'll probably only worry about two of them, the two fairly interesting ones. The first one's Triton. So you may have a little struggle with the word Titan, which is the big moon of Saturn, and the name Triton, which is the big moon of Neptune. Triton, it's the only large moon in the solar system to go backwards, to go around what we call its parent planet, in this case Neptune, the wrong way, okay? Every other large moon orbits the planet parent in the same counterclockwise direction, same as most of the other bodies in the solar system. But this moon, the reverse direction, which is perfectly okay as far as the laws of gravity are concerned, but it indicates some sort of peculiar event in the early solar system that gave this moon a motion in contrast to the general spin of the raw material that it was formed from. The other moon orbiting Neptune that I want to talk about is Nereid. Nereid has the most eccentric orbit, the most lopsided elliptical type orbit for a large moon in the solar system. The others tend more like circular orbits. Does it mean that Pluto and Neptune might have been related somehow in the past and then drifted slowly into the present orbits? If Pluto did ever belong to the Neptune system, do Pluto's moons represent Pluto-type bodies that have been captured by Neptune? Was Pluto the object that disrupted the Neptune system at some point in the past? It's really hard to prove any of these things, but now we're starting to appreciate that there's quite a few junior Plutos out there, not big enough to really call a planet, but large enough that they're significant in history of the early solar system. So we'll come back to those when we talk about comets and other small bodies in the fringes of the outer solar system. Okay, so what does the professor imply about the orbits of Triton and Neptune? Anybody? Any volunteers?
So, Professor?
Can I?
Yeah? Whoever. Okay. How about Melanie?
Professor, I think it's B.
No, it's not B. Any
Can
guess? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Please.
I think is D. They might have been changed by some unusual event.
Right, because it says, where does it say it?
Like in the second paragraph, in the second or the third.
But it indicates some sort of peculiar event in the early solar system that gave this moon a motion in contrast to the general spin of the raw material that it formed from. So that's unusual and peculiar are synonymous words. Okay. So let's see what the other ones. They used to be closer together. It doesn't say that in the listening. They might provide evidence of an undiscovered planet. Well, they do talk about bodies in the outer solar system, but they don't really mention that has anything to do with the odd orbits of Triton and Nereid, and they may reverse directions in the future. Again, it doesn't say that. Triton is going in the direction opposite of all other big moons in the solar system, but it doesn't say anything about it might change directions and start going counterclockwise. Okay, so we're on the last type of question here, which are, a lot of the questions we've done so far in the listening section as well as in the reading might require you to make inferences. And of course, in the reading section, there was a specific question on inferences, and there's a specific question on inferences here. Okay.
Professor,
Yes.
can we have the list of these lectures? Because our book is like big enough, and every day we don't have the title for these lectures in our module. So if we could have the list of those.
Sure. I can put these in there.
Thank you so much.
Plus, you also might, when I give the page numbers for these things, you might take those down also. That would help.
Well, actually, it is the starting of the page.
Okay.
Like if we have the titles, it is going to help us a little bit. Good.
Okay, well, I'll add them at the end afterwards here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so making inference questions. And if you remember, lots of times both writers and speakers don't explicitly or directly say what they mean. You have to figure out from the information they give you what they mean. And that's making an inference or